Joining us today is the host of Real America on the brave and unapologetic One America News Network, more commonly known as OAN. Dan Ball, welcome to Better for America. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Truly appreciate it.
OAN was one of the few networks on television that covered topics that are considered off limits in depth. We are shockingly at a point in American history where disagreeing and debating on matters is no longer allowed. There's only really one side that is given the chance to state its opinion. There is a massive conservative censorship operation going on, but I want to ask you specifically, do you feel that those in mainstream media are attacking conservative outlets because they truly believe disinformation is being spread? Or are they simply part of this organized attack to silence a movement?
I think it's a little bit of both. And let me start out with a statement. After 30 years in this industry, legacy mainstream media is dead. Journalism is not dead. Legacy mainstream media, the way people typically sign up for their cable, their satellite, and watch an MSNBC, a Fox, a CNN, or the big old three, ABC, NBC, CBS, is dead. Independent journalists and a mom and pop network like where I work, OAN, where we're not ruled by our advertisers, by corporate overlords, by lobbyists, if you will. Okay, there's literally one individual and his two sons that are here every day working hard, and the barely couple hundred employees that keep the ship sailing every single day. That's independent media. That's independent journalism. Yes, we're a network, but nowhere in the traditional means. And back to your question, because doing it as long as I've done it, I have plenty of friends that work for a lot of this legacy media. I've got friends at Fox News. I've got friends, well, not anymore at MSNBC or CNN because we parted ways as friends, but I know people in legacy media. Most of them don't believe what they're spewing, but it's a directive given to them by upper management or ownership. If they do buy it, it's because they're an active liberal journalist. They're not a journalist anymore. They're an activist is what they are. And so that's why I think it's a little bit of both. You do have some of these talk show hosts and journalists, so-called, on the networks who believe when they say, OAN is Russian propaganda and run by Russians and Trump. I think a small portion of people believe that garbage. The other ones know that's not true, but that's the narrative they need to spew to keep the agenda moving forward. That conservative media lies, that it's propaganda, you name it. Because I've literally spoken to folks off camera who know damn well, and they know who I am. They know who owns this place. They know we're not controlled by some Russian oligarch. They know Trump doesn't call us and say, put this story on. But that's what they'll portray. I mean, look us up on Wikipedia. Look at anything from Media Matters or Daily Beast or all these ridiculous liberal rags. All they do is throw OAN under the bus and try to act like we're some right-wing fringe crazy disinformation network. No, we're just the folks with the guts to cover stories they won't, and especially on the talk shows, throw out opinions that aren't popular, that go against the liberal narrative agenda in this nation. And I, for one, after 30 years total, 27 and a half in local commercial television, I'd had enough. I'd had enough with the media, politics, politicians, the system. So in 18, I quit. I ran for office. I got my butt kicked in California as a Republican running for Congress in Sonny and Mary Bono's old seat. And so then I came to OAN and I left the news anchor chair of no opinion, reading the news, and went with an opinionated talk show. So I could point out all the hypocrisies, all the double standards, all the BS that's happening with this media narrative today. Because you've still got companies like CNN and the rest of them, Fox and all of them, saying we're fair and balanced, we're the most trusted name in news, all these bogus claims, right? From the New York Times to sit, all of them. They're so biased, whether it's extreme left or extreme right. Because let's be real, for years, Fox was. Now Fox is turning because they have new ownership. And they're biting the hand that fed them for 25 years. This place is different. When I started here, the owner literally asked me, Mr. Herring, who's 81 years old, he said, will you go after Republicans or anyone that deserves it, that are screwing over the American people as hard as you would against a Democrat or a liberal? And I said, hell yes. And he said, you're hired. That's what we're about.
That's a great story and so important, the work that you're doing. One thing that we're not going to hear from on CNN or MSNBC is the Representative James Comer and the House GOP Oversight Committee, who identified 9 members of the Biden family who were involved in an elaborate pay-to-play foreign influence peddling scheme. This was during Joe Biden's vice presidency. My question for you, sir, is where is this headed in your view? Let our members know. What do you think will come of this?
Well, what will come of it depends on you, the American voter. If we can take control of the Senate and the White House, obviously Joe's gone, we can still charge him out of office. But while he's in office, it's going to be very difficult. We have a slim majority. We're about to have one less seat majority because I'm sure you saw the wag the dog this morning, right? You know what wag the dog story happened? Literally overnight, the CNN gets leaked hours before because James did something dumb. And by the way, he's on my show tomorrow. James told everyone, we're going to have a press conference at 10 on Wednesday and announce all these charges about Joe, Hunter, and the whole crime family. So what happened? The DOJ, who we know, and the IRS and the FBI have all looked the other way when it comes to the laptop, the contents, Joe, and the whole damn family. What did they do overnight? They pushed the indictment of Republican George Santos. I'm not sticking up for him. If the guy's a criminal, throw the damn book at him. But here's the deal. Watch the media coverage. I've been watching it all morning. Ever since they slipped in that George Santos was going to get indicted, he then surrendered. He's now been under arrest, 13 counts. All the mainstream is doing nothing but George Santos and Trump verdict. And they're barely touching the James Comer and Oversight Committee news that our president is compromised and corrupt as hell. This is what the mainstream media has become. They're a mouthpiece for the liberal left agenda, and our alphabet soup agencies are corrupt as hell and have been weaponized to go after political opponents. That's what's happening. That's the truth. And all the other networks that won't say it are a bunch of pansies because they're bought and paid for. But we say that stuff here because we're not. We're not controlled by any corporate overlord. We're not controlled by a major Pfizer sponsor that can tell me, shh, Dan, you can't say that.
I still don't believe that we're at the point where almost everyone understands that you really can't trust what you're hearing from so many networks.
Well, look, I don't have the ability to do polls like these other networks, which they're bogus anyway. We called 1,100 people, and here's what they said. Whatever. It's garbage. But here's what I will tell you on an unscientific poll. If you look at the ratings numbers from Nielsen, which are hard numbers because they do what's called overnights, and they can track your satellite or your cable carriers to see who's watching what, CNN's down 65% since the beginning of the year on every program. MSNBC is down like 40-some%. Fox is down in key demos between 40 and 50%. Now, you start looking on social media at the comments from people, whether it's the Biden White House page on Instagram or Twitter, and look at the thousands of comments. They're all negative. People are leaving legacy media. They don't buy the narrative from this regime. They are seeing through it. So I think the tide is turning, and you're seeing it with ratings. They're turning off legacy media, and they're looking for independent journalists. And you have people popping up, whether it's James O'Keefe with his hidden cameras, or you have 2 young, brave women. One's coming on my show today, Ivory Hecker and April Moss, both young women who worked for legacy media affiliates, one in Dallas and one in Detroit, did that whole live on the air, I'm going to break this news and tell you the station I work for is corrupt. Those 2 ladies have tons of followers now. They do independent reporting. You're seeing Real America's Voice, OAN, Newsmax, Right Side Broadcasting, all these smaller independent and even just single journalists starting to blossom on social media, and people are subscribing and following them and tuning out the legacy BS. They are. It's happening.
People are also fed up with any form of conservative deplatforming. Fox News has undergone a jaw-dropping ratings decline since they parted ways with Tucker Carlson. If there's so much evidence of companies and corporations that are really taking substantial losses when they align with the left, why do you think they are ignoring all of the buying signals from their consumers?
Because for too many years, okay, Becca, and people are going to get upset when I say this that are good Christian conservatives, for too many years, we've been pansies. That's why. We've been weak-kneed Republicans. We've been weak-kneed Christians. And let me explain what I mean. They're more afraid of the rainbow mafia and the radical left woke mob coming after them and hurting their shares than they are the Christian right or conservatives or Republicans, because we don't do that. For too many decades, we'd say, We don't do that to somebody. We're not going to harm their business because we have different political beliefs. That's not who we are as a person, as a people, as a Christian. We'll let the crazy lefties do that crap. The problem is, look what the hell happened. Every time you give this woke mob an inch, they take 10 miles. You give on bump stocks, they want all your guns. You give on abortion a couple months, they want to abort them after 9 months. You give on gay marriage, which I was for back in the day. Now look what they want. They want us to believe transgenderism is a thing and that I got to change pronouns and I've got to believe a man can be a woman can be a man. You see what I'm saying? We were too weak-kneed for too damn long. And so the companies are just starting to get the clue. The legacy media's got the clue. Their ratings suck. We got to keep that up. But the businesses are not going to get the clue until we hit them in the pocketbook. And thanks to Bud Light seeing what, a $7 to $9 billion market share loss, I think they woke up. You saw the CEO this week backpedaling. It wasn't a full marketing campaign with Dylan. No. It was a little one-off social media thing. So we got to teach them a lesson and stop going, we're better than they are. We can't do that. Really? Well, guess what? If you don't, you're going to keep getting this transgender, woke ideology. You said go against the nuclear family. Hell, go against American principles and values. If we don't push back, it will continue because they're more afraid of the radical left mob, which, oh, by the way, and let me wrap up here, they're smaller than we are. This nation is still a center-right, God-fearing country. I believe it in my bones, at least 51%. So stop believing that the woke mob is bigger than our mob, and let's start showing it with our dollars.
And what I found interesting, Dan, is referring to Tucker Carlson, the details we still, are under wraps, but his leaving did come shortly after he made a speech that referenced a need to pray. And when I touch on all of the problems that you've just discussed, right, and that I've mentioned, I think it can really truly be boiled down to people dismissing the whole idea that we're one nation under God. Your grandmother raised you to understand the importance of not only conservative values, but more importantly, Christian values. What is your outlook on where we are as a nation in regard to, our moral compass? On one hand, you see so many signs of really a godless society, but as you mentioned, on the other hand, we do see so many turning towards God during this difficult time. Where do you see us headed?
I see glimmers of hope. And I say that because I have to. It's America. It's what we believe. If we don't fight, if we don't keep and look, I'm a sinner, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm some amazing Christian who can speak to Christians and tell them what they should be doing, because God knows I've made a lot of mistakes in my life and sinned a hell of a lot. But I at least have enough moral compass and faith to understand that we have pulled him out of almost everything. And again, we've allowed it. Okay? We've allowed them to remove God because when they threw that big court case at us back in the, 70s or whatever, on separation of church and state, we were told you can't even have God anywhere near a school, a government building, nothing. That's what the meaning of separation meant. Again, we let them take 10 miles when we gave an inch. We shouldn't have done that. How can you have a nation that was founded on Christian beliefs, where every piece of paper that we use for our currency says, in God we trust, where every courtroom we walk into says, in God we trust, where we still, in a lot of cases, say an anthem and say our patriotic phrases, slogans, whatever, and then you tell me we've got to separate and keep God out of everything. We didn't used to. If you go back from the 60s back, we didn't used to. We've been in decline ever since the 70s by removing God from this country. The minute you took prayer out of school, and you can make it optional, you started telling kids they didn't need to believe in anything. Now you've got the government telling people, whether they're a marginalized community or a minority community or whatever it may be, you need to put your faith in government. And that's what the globalist elites want. They want you to put their faith into them. They do not want us to believe, in their words, some magical fake being. Well, guess what? There's more of us than them. So I have to stay positive and think that God, like he always does, will prevail. And so we have to keep pushing that agenda, talking about our faith, and trying to be the best examples we can. God help us, but not give up. Do I think it's getting worse? Hell yes, it's getting worse. They have done a great job at removing God and faith from every facet of government and media and you name it. So has it gotten worse? Yes. Are we seeing a bit of a revival and a revolution? I hope so. I mean, you've got some big name actors coming out and talking about their faith just in the last month, right? From Chris Pratt to Mark Wahlberg. You've got one of the number one movies over the last several months was Jesus Revolution, based on that true story of what happened with the hippies back in the 60s and Jesus here in California and a church. So, not to be cheesy, but you got to have faith. And that's what keeps me fighting every single day.
Well, we just love OAN. I want you to share with our listeners, how can they get to your show? You've been known to have a smaller audience compared to other networks. Tell us about your show.
Well, that's because they canceled it. That's only because they canceled it. You got to remember, last year alone, in 1 year, DirecTV, Verizon Fios, and Frontier, and in that order, I think it went May, August, November. All right, as far as Direct canceled in May or April, and then Verizon was August, I think, and then November was Frontier. With those, I think Direct has 12 million households, Verizon has 3 to 4, and Frontier had 1 to 2. So we lost somewhere around 17 million households in 1 year. That's called censoring. And none of those, contrary to what the left-wing media says, none of those were contractual disputes over money or fees. Every single one of those instances is censorship. I know this because I'm not only an employee here, but the Herrings have really embraced me, my show, my staff as family. I'm in a lot of corporate meetings, and I can tell you point blank, we offered our product next to nothing for these carriers. They wouldn't take it because they said, according to letters that were sent to them by 2 members on the Democrat side in the House of Representatives, that we were misinformation. And we're losing advertisers as we speak daily because they're listening to that NewsGuard garbage, which was funded by the Pentagon, we found out in the past couple of weeks, saying that we are misinformation. And you know who sent that letter saying that we are misinformation? 4 Democrat senators. So the senators have scared off our advertisers. The House of Representative a-holes have scared off our providers. So now to watch, yes, we're still on Pluto and Roku. Those are, because we have to monetize to pay the bills and pay salary and keep the lights on here, those are old shows. They're not live every day. So Pluto and Roku, you'll see our shows, but they're tape delayed for days. That's why they're free on Pluto and Roku. The talk shows are on iHeartRadio. You can hear the audio every day live. My show's there. The show's on 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern every day. Then we're still on about 100 small cable carriers around the country in maybe 20, 30 states that aren't weak and still believe in us. And the main way to watch us are 2 apps. We're streaming. That's the main way. Cloud TV, KLOWD. That one's about $5 a month. You get multiple channels with OAN. And then our direct app is OAN. You can go to the website, OANN2Ns.com. Sign up. That's $4.99 a month as well. That gets you OAN only, but it gives you on-demand features. So you can watch anytime, either live or go back and watch when you want. Obviously, we prefer you shop with us because if you get the OAN app, that's 100% to the mom and pop network. There's no third-party provider in the middle that can cut us off a year from now like they cut us off last year. So we are true independent, and we're the only true independent network out there that I can think of. Most other things are just a small streaming service or obviously the big old-style networks, which we were up until last year when they canceled us. So if you want to watch, it's 5 and 8 Eastern, Monday through Friday, Real America with Dan Ball, and get the app. That's the easiest way. You help support independent journalists and a true mom and pop network.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I do hope to have you back with us again. We greatly appreciate all of the work that you're doing to get the word out to the American people on so many important issues. Keep up the great work, Dan, and God bless you.
Thank you guys so much. God bless you. Thank you.